Today we are here with a legend of all legends. If you want to get something done, you're going to do it the Sharpe way. We're here with none other than Mr. Chad Sharpe. Yeah, Chad.
So how's it going?
It's going great. Going great. You know, if there's one person that I can really, through doing this whole little adventure of interviews and talking to everyone, if there's someone I can get down and talk about some history and some fun stories, been looking forward to talking to you.
Couldn't wait to be here.
So, let's see here, Chatty. We've been friends for a long time now. Over 20 years.
Easily.
Over 20 years.
Even back to our junior days, that put us in our teens.
Yep. Yeah, that was in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
The mid-90s, yeah. So for people that don't know, why don't we just start out a little bit from how you got into wakeboarding and like kind of where you came from. Obviously, you're from Canada, but it's wakeboarding as a whole today is a completely different world as it was in the mid-90s. So what got you, someone that lived in Vancouver, the Vancouver area, what got you on the water and got you down to Florida?
Well, I got very lucky to start with. My parents were into water sports early on. I actually lived in Winnipeg, Canada. My grandma had a summer place there, so behind outboard boats, we'd tube and water ski and all that. And then we ended up moving to BC, and we got a lake place in Washington State. And it was basically a place that anytime the weather was okay, or even summer, or not even like even dry suits, we were down at that cabin in Washington State. It was like 30 minutes from where we lived in BC. And it's just started, kneeboarding, tubing, 3-eventing.
Right.
I saw wakeboarding one day. Jeff here lived on my lake,
Right.
on the lake that we lived on in Washington. I saw him doing. I'm like, we got to get one of those, Dad. And
Which was in Bellingham.
Yeah.
Which was like
Samish.
Yeah, Samish, which we've all had great times there.
Absolutely.
Especially at Jeff Here's cabin.
That lake is just epic.
Yeah.
There's actually a lot of wakeboard history on that lake, and it's way up in Bellingham, Washington.
Right,
And
right.
I was just very fortunate that I had the means to get on the water, and just like a lot of us, especially back then, like a lot of us came from water skiing, competing background, and then get into wakeboarding, and then you go through the cycle. You ride your local contests. You start doing good at those. You're kind of like, oh, hey, maybe I can go to Canadian Nationals or the regionals,
Right.
and you move on through there. You qualify to the junior worlds and so on and so forth. And
Right.
as that grows, you just meet people throughout the country and throughout the world and make those contacts and further progress your career. Not that it was even supposed to ever be a career at that point.
Right, right. Well, the Pacific Northwest definitely, especially in like the mid 90s, I mean, has a rich water sports, heritage.
Oh yeah, and you could go like one weekend I'd be at a contest in BC, and I swear there was a contest that you could go to in the Northwest every weekend. There
Right.
was,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
one in Seattle, one.
What was that contest tour back in the day that was
Well, there was INT, which definitely had a big presence. Up in Canada, Mike McComb ran like basically the BC tour that had like 8 or 9 stops throughout the summer. There was a pro tour in Seattle. There was the Pacific Wakeboard Champ. There was events everywhere up in the Northwest.
yeah.
So like I was definitely early on, I was getting exposure to like, top pros were coming to. They didn't the pro tour. Obviously, you'd see everybody, but like then you'd see these other events, and you get a couple pros would come to this, a couple pros would come to that, and there was really a scene back then.
I mean, some of the most fun and just out of hand times I can ever remember were at the original Abbotsford contest, the one year you won. What was that, 99 or 2000? Somewhere in
Yeah,
there?
right in there, 99, 2000.
Yeah.
It was
'Cause
either my first or second year on tour, so I won 98 Junior Worlds.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then
I remember that.
I think it was 2000 because I think Kovac won the first one.
You're right. You are 100% right. Kovac came back in 99, rode that event, won it, and then
Yeah.
the following year You
Yep,
took it. And oh, you know why I remember that? Because we both had our first pro tour win the same year. I won Detroit that year,
that's right.
and then
Yeah.
you took that. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, me and you really turned pro the same year.
Yep.
We both rode our first tour stop. That was the one in Fort Lauderdale, right?
No, well, the first actual pro tour stop that we rode in, that was the second one of that season. The first one was the first pro tour that was at OWC when it opened up in 99.
You're right.
Because 99 is when you, myself, Watson, Shane, all went pro,
Yeah.
right? Because yeah, 98 you won the worlds
Yep.
in junior men's, and then that was our all of ours last year.
Stepped up to the next level.
Exactly, exactly.
So yeah, that was a lot. I mean, just those early on travels. Holy moly.
Dude, and those were all when Kobe and Bish had the bus tour going on, and we would just mob.
Yeah.
Just the entire weekend
Yeah.
was just.
Peace out. I'm leaving in April, and I'll see you in October.
But I'm just saying, like, I remember like going up to Canada for the Abbotsford, and then later on going up to why can't I remember where you know the vacation area of
Kelowna. Kelowna.
Kelowna. I
Yeah.
mean, those are just some of the most insane wakeboarding events of all time.
So
Like,
Abbotsford was insane. Like the crowd was great. I mean, you couldn't fit more people in that park. Like it was a very small venue, and that's obviously probably why it moved to Kelowna. But like from a wakeboarding standpoint, the boats were smaller than that was. The riding conditions, that was an unreal.
exactly. Abbotsford was like freaking the
Yeah.
best conditions you could ask for, and then you go to Kelowna and it's freaking
Whites, like the biggest seas, like,
just constant
yeah.
swell coming
But
in
there
and
were
like,
also 30,000 people at the
which was
event.
insane. The
Like,
energy at those was
I did.
mind
I
blowing.
remember getting my parents tickets from the contest organizers, and they're like, "Are you sure this is your mom? Are you sure this is your?" I'm like, "What's the deal?" Like every other tour stop, I can get like 10 tickets or
Right.
50 tickets. They're like, these tickets are $200 for the weekend. I'm like, "Oh yeah, like my little brother." Like, whoa, this is a big deal. People are paying huge money, and it's the biggest event we've ever seen.
Well, not just that. So there was live music, there was motocross, bikini Reef would have bikini contests.
Forgot about this.
Remember they would have all of us judge a bikini contest.
Allegedly.
It was just such a different world of wakeboarding. And like you showed up to Kelowna and you were just instantly treated like a rock
It
star.
was insane. Do you remember the one year? It was in Kelowna. It was the Sunday of the event, right after the finals. For that event, I don't know if it was. Remember when the online poker had just gone through the
Yeah,
roof?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And PokerStars.com or one of those big ones. What I don't quote me that it was PokerStars, but it was like one of those big ones. They had a pro rider event where like $10,000
Oh
worth of
yeah.
we're playing on the beach
I
at
do
the
remember
event.
that. Yeah, I didn't I was never
It was the
never
craziest thing ever. Like, what does that have to do with wakeboarding? Meanwhile, they're having, you know, lights on after the event ends, a poker championship with,
what did half the shit that went on at Pro Tour stops back in the day have to do with wakeboarding? It was just awesome. Like
yeah,
that's what made it such a cool event is like it was, so much there was like you said 30,000 partying people, like people raging, and then there was always a double up contest.
that's right.
And
And that happened not just at the big event, that happened all over the country.
well let's actually get move into that. Like because your riding style and the way your whole persona of being a wakeboarder and what you did for wakeboarding was just sending double ups and like obviously rail riding and huge gaps and all that. Like obviously everything you did was full send, but I'm saying like I feel like just until recently the whole art of hitting double ups kind of fell off for what,
We,
a decade?
I agree with you. We didn't see it. We saw it here and there for a long time. Like Rusty would bring it back once in a while and do like an edit or
Right.
something or like a clip. But like there was a whole era there. Like at the end of the lake, when you were training, whether it was at your house, at my house, whatever, you do a double up when you turn around and go the other way.
Every
Like
turnaround
it
was a
was
dub.
just part of your daily ride. So say you did 4 laps, you did 4 double ups
Right.
or 8 double ups every set.
100%. So with that being said, like that was just instilled into our riding. Every single pro tour contest, like the Friday night or one of the early nights of the pro tour stop, there'd be a bar. They'd have a sponsored double up event
Yes.
at a bar, and we would get there and we were all under 21. We'd sneak as many beers as we could before we rode, and then we'd go out and send half cocked.
Oh,
And some of the best riding in the
and
world
I
at
mean,
that period went down.
every weekend we extra $1,000 here, extra $2,000 here, extra
But dude, a two beer buzz hitting a double up.
makes it feel better.
I mean, you enter a new world of. I mean,
That was
you turn your mind off.
that was the same thing for the kicker events with me. Was finish the event, finish riding your tour stop, and then like have a couple beers and just cut into the
And it
kicker.
was so fun because there would be like everyone that was going to the tour stop in the area, the locals, they would be at the bar.
Oh yeah,
And they would be, I mean, I just feel like that a major difference in wakeboarding today, and I think it's starting to come back, like talking to like Ty and Masi and Jakey about stuff. I feel like that energy is starting to come back, but like
it was a community entry.
what we got to experience
Energy.
was not just the energy that from the people that we're riding with, but the energy from the people that were coming to the contest to cheer on and be a part of it. And there was such a wakeboard community that was driving these big events that was
100%.
it was
And then you'd run into the same like awesome people every single year you'd go back. And then like especially like if we did a West Coast
right.
like hang out with a bunch of the same people in Seattle, hang out with a bunch of the same people in
Exactly.
Portland, and then like a bunch of them would make it down to like maybe like a Sacramento
And
stop.
we ended up becoming like really pretty good friends with all these random people all over the world that were just coming out to the events to party and hang out and were just full wakeboard
Oh, I'm with you. Like
supporters
yeah, and then like oh
and wakeboard and they were riders themselves, which was
and then
so cool.
randomly outside of wakeboard, we're like, oh, we're going to hang with the Vegas boys this week. You got an event there? No, we're just going to hang with the boys. Or oh, we're going to hang with my boys in SAC. We're going to hang with like yeah, you just met like this larger community that you met through the sport that just became friends.
I mean, you remember Kobe. I mean, being on the buses, we met crazy. I remember Scott Beitelgeuse. I mean, I still talk to him. I mean, just a guy we met at a wakeboard contest was hyped on wakeboarding, hops on a bus, and 20 years later, we're still friends.
Yeah, no, I still I don't talk to him a ton, but like anytime I see him catch some fish or he sees me catch some fish, we're dude, nice catch. Like how's it
Yeah,
going? Like
yeah, that was an amazing period in wakeboarding, just from the fact that there was such a vibe and an energy that was brought to these contests, and it was more than just going to the contest. It was a whole weekend experience where these people would be out for the entire weekend.
and one I don't I mean obviously I don't ride tour at this point, but one thing I always thought that was cool about it, whether from when I was real young going to Seattle tour as a fan or going to Seattle tour or Portland tour as an athlete was the accessibility
Right.
to the from the fan to the athlete. There was any time of day or any time of night you could walk up to any athlete, whether
100%.
it was at a signing, whether it was just walking around the site. And one thing wakeboarding's always been great about, it's always been a community sport, is you could always just walk up to the athlete like, hey man, you're my favorite guy, or like, hey, I've been working on this. And you get a lot of other sports that there's not that accessibility. Like, you go to the US Open of tennis and coach
Right.
tried talking. But I think that's what made it such a community is the access between the athlete and the fan.
Like you're saying, like you leave Wimbledon, you're not going to go have a couple beers with
Oh,
Federer.
depending where you go, but no,
Yeah,
probably
exactly, exactly. I think I said his name right.
yeah,
Possibly.
you did. You
All
did.
right, all right.
Yeah.
Not really a tennis buff, but
Yeah.
okay.
But
Let's
yeah,
let's change gears up here, Chatty.
let's
Let's change gears up.
let's go.
Okay. Where and how and what is the Sharpe Way?
The Sharpe Way. Well, I didn't come up with the Sharpe Way. I just
You
well,
did wait, no, you did come up with the Sharpe Way.
I didn't name it. With Lake Ronix, obviously, it's this beautiful place that we're at about what 9 years now.
10. This
10.
is 10 years.
10 years, and there's 280 acres, and it's basically farmland style stuff. So a lot of stuff breaks, and a lot of stuff gets stuck, and a lot of trees fall down. So we don't have all the heavy equipment we need. So every once in a while, we gotta just kind of horse it out.
We just horse it out.
Yeah, something like that. If you don't have the right tool, figure out something that works. If you don't have the right tractor, figure out a way to do it with a truck.
A lot of things with the Sharpe Way involve tying your truck to things.
Pretty much. Yes. Yeah, I mean, we get hurricanes, tornadoes, all that stuff, so we got to keep the place clean, and that's how we do it.
So that leads to another thing I'd like to talk about is Lake Ronix and your role in Lake Ronix. And I mean, like you mentioned, we're a decade deep now out here. What is your role and I mean, obviously what you were saying, but like what at Lake Ronix is like your main deal, and what is your whole outlook on this place of like where it started and where it's going?
I mean, it started as, just, from what my view on it, everyone has a different view on it, was the cables went in, all these rails went in, get the athletes out here, this filming central place, build stuff, and this progression thing. And that's really what it started as, is like, then we were just constantly like, I mean, doing beaches and doing all the other stuff, but like that, it was really this heavy riding place. And then, as you've seen over the years, the lake itself, I mean, that's a two-part question, one me, one the lake. Then it's kind of evolved into now. Like, I mean, we're sitting in this beautiful showroom that we have these amazing dealers come down and learn the product and get to go ride it straight on the water. And I'm so glad I get to be a part of that, whether even if I'm not in the classroom, I'm in the boat, either driving all day long or just helping out with what I can. And then my role kind of here is, I don't know that it actually has a title. It's everything from these motors break down, fix it here, call people in to fix stuff that I can't fix, trees falling over the road, or fixing the roads, or being on the water with people. It's just,
Yeah.
I don't know that it's a titled role. It's,
No, you're involved in making sure things are running smoothly around
I
here.
could pretty much come any morning and pull in the gate and I got, these are like the five main things I want to do. There are 10 other things that need to get done. And every once in a while, knock one of the 10 off on the way of finishing the first five.
Right.
And a lot of times, there's only a few of us out here very often, and just try and get done what we can to
Right.
keep it looking beautiful. Because when everyone comes down, we just want it to be the most amazing place that there is.
But not just on an upkeep side of things. You're out on the bi-level, building rails, helping redesign everything, helping, when the boys come with an idea or whatever, you're the one that is taking the bull by the horns and getting all the projects done. Like we did something really cool this year that we haven't done since, kind of we're inspired by some old stuff from
Yeah, and you brought
at,
that up,
at
which was cool.
Radar, which was what movie was that? Was that
It
Counterfeit This?
wasn't it the rail when the pool gap on the side.
It was the one, like where our tents are now, where that
That's right.
right? That I think that was Counterfeit This.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So we kind of like were inspired by some old radar rails.
Fairly simple rails, but they
No,
can be gnarly.
no, no.
So like we've been in the cable, like we've done everything under the cable for so long. We're like, well, there's some pretty cool winches out now that are electric, and we got a jet ski out here, and we literally have all this land that like we really haven't tapped into.
Right,
We've been kind of like, let's build everything under these cables, and now it's like, I mean, just by clearing a few areas, like, all right, well, we can build this and this, which we did this year, and we're like, but now that we got a little more time, we're gonna build a pool here, and then like this beside that, like, there's really elevation and untapped resources around here that I think maybe we forgot about, or
yeah, no, it was really cool to get out and like just use some natural areas and kind of get creative and flip the
yeah.
script a little bit.
I really love too, like once the young guys came out and especially when they started hitting that one, the down rail the other day, like first couple, like they kind of seemed nervous, and then all of a sudden it was just like, let's go. And just seeing the stoke, and like, I mean, I left a little early, but apparently that session went till 1 in the morning. Like,
1 in the morning. One in the
like
morning. There
we
was there was fire involved. There was smoke involved. There
we
was lights involved.
we started at 5 in the afternoon. Like,
Yep.
so that's that. I mean, I actually wish I had stayed longer, because I mean, I was proud that they were so stoked on it while I was there, let alone
Yep, and you hand dug that thing out. Pretty crazy.
eventually we'll have some machines and we'll
Chad, tell me your favorite radar story.
favorite.
Yeah, and dig deep. Dig deep. Let's go welcome. Like let's maybe think about some porta potties,
Well,
some
obviously you know
some
that you know the
fires.
infamous porta potty story. That was from a hilarity
I
level.
think you might need to refresh my memory on that one.
All right, so early days radar, we didn't actually stay anywhere where we stay now. We stayed down basically at the boat ramp. We had tents
Mm-hmm.
in the grass around the boat ramp and like that we were down not banished to that area, but like you guys are a little wild. Just stay down.
Yeah, they wanted to keep the ruffians
Yeah,
down
yeah.
down at bay. Yeah.
Here's a porta potty.
Yep.
Here's the boats. Here's the lake.
Yep.
So, but it was. I mean, couldn't be.
And let's see what year this was like 2002, 2003
Yeah.
era, somewhere in there.
I mean, Letchworth. Like
Yeah, it was early 2000s.
so. Basically, during that time, it was just always like messing with each other. Like, and especially around the campfire, it just escalated and escalated.
Right.
And this was the craziest thing. So, Parks messes with everybody. We all mess with each other. And Parks kind of sneaks off when we see him go to the porta potty, which is like, I don't know, 20 feet away from the fire, but it's in the pitch black. And just without even saying a word, not one word was spoke, me and Paul looked at each other, stood up, and both went running as fast as we could, straight across the campfire into the darkness, and we both just drop kicked the porta potty as hard as we could. Wham!
Hits the
On
ground.
its side. And what had happened is Parks maybe had an inkling in his mind that everyone was messing with each other. He opened the door, closed it, and then walked around the side and was taking a pee. So when the porta potty goes down, he's just standing beside the porta potty taking a pee. And I'm like, damn it, he's right next to the porta potty. We're like, oh, that was so close. So fast forward to the next morning, and obviously we pick up the porta potty and clean it all up, and like, nothing happened down here. And Paul's standing. Obviously, everyone had a big night, and Herb walks up to Paul. He's like, "Hey, Paul, um, did someone kick over the porta potty last night?" No, I don't think so. Like, not that I know of. Like, type thing. He's like, "Oh, yeah, that's weird because there's shit paper all over the roof."
I do remember
Like
that.
there's toilet paper stuck to the roof, and it's
I
like,
do remember
and from
that.
what I remember, Paul's like, "Oh, yeah, that's weird." Like, I don't know.
I do somehow also remember at one point you stealthily walking by a campfire and possibly dropping a mortar into it.
So there's two stories to that. One was a can of beans.
No, wasn't it Mountain Dew?
It was I thought it was a can of beans.
It was, I mean, you did it,
I
so I
mean,
mean,
I got the back end to that story 10 years later. Maybe it was might have been a beer. Well, whatever it was, we're all sitting around the campfire, same campfire, actually probably the same year. Um, obviously known to cause problems out there from time to time, and we're all just sitting around the fire having a beer, and the fire just explodes. Like hot lava just gets spit out everywhere. Jeff here just gets hit from head to toe, tearing his clothes off.
that's
he,
right.
he tore down to his underwear. And
That's
I
right.
was actually sitting right next to him and somehow didn't get hit by it, but he just
He
got hit by
he automatically blames you.
blames me, starts swinging like, dude, I'm gonna kill you. I'm like, dude, I promise, I have no idea what happened. Like, so 10 years I got the rap for this thing.
Was that when he charged you and lunged at you and disintegrated that
Oh, yeah.
chair?
Took my chair was a pile of plastic underneath me. I was on the ground, and I'm like, dude, I promise, like, I did nothing to do with that. Like, did not do that. And for 10 years, everyone thought I did that. And I ran into Josh Letchworth somewhere, and he said, dude, like 10 years later, maybe even more, maybe even like 15 years later, he's like, dude, I gotta come clean with you on something. And he goes, hey, do you remember that time something blew up in the fire? We're like, yeah, everybody remembers the time something blew up in the. I put, I can't remember exactly, a can of Coke or a beer. He's like, yeah, I stuck something in there. That was me. I'm like, thanks. It's good he came clean with it, but yeah. but he kind of like brought it up to me like, do you remember that one time? Like no one was ever gonna remember that one time, and like,
You're like, yeah, no, I
yeah,
remember
we all
that.
remember that one time.
That's awesome. What was talking about incomplete and pointless? I remember, you know, for your section, you had some monster hits in incomplete, and I feel like that whole era and that section like really like solidified like your status as someone that was just doing gnarly shit on a wakeboard. And I remember, that huge gap that you hit the kicker to the top of the
OWC.
at OWC. I mean, like some of that stuff was just insane, and like the whole like self-filming incomplete with all the gang. And I mean, like, what was like from your perspective, like what was that like being a part of that era of wakeboarding, and being in Pointless, and like I feel like we were just living, eating, breathing wakeboarding and just being in the moment.
That's all it was. I mean, literally everywhere we drove around, we were looking for ponds. We were looking for gaps. Like anywhere we go, it was just trying to eyeball something to do. It was the most fun time because the guys had already started hitting rails in wakeboarding. It had already been big in snowboarding for a while, but like it was a very untapped market. Like at that point, it was like a couple flat bars, couple up bars. Like hey, where can we take this? Like oh, we can build pools in the woods to down rails. We can build like oh, look at this place right next to the turnpike. There's two different.
I remember going for incomplete, and remember going through like I think it was Winter Haven, going to all like those abandoned like mills and stuff and cutting those handrails down, and
Yeah. Those were the handrails on top of the picnic
on top of the
tables.
picnic tables.
We
Exactly.
took it off an old cement factory that had
Yep.
been closed down for like 50 years.
Yep.
I was just trying to find material to do it and trying to find spots to do it. Like
Right.
when we were doing all that, I mean, as well as I do, like there weren't any like the options were endless. Like because there had been so much that had never even been tried or never been done.
Exactly.
It was very young in that era, and it's obviously moved now to more of a cable park setting.
And plus, nowadays you go, everything is made for people. Like there's already rails, whatever. Everything we had to hit was stolen and built.
And then as we made a little more money than our Home Depot bills and Fiberon bills and but that really kind of brings into when the projects started going like early around in that era and
Yeah.
they were kind of hitting it on jet skis, but that was really kind of progressing it from there.
The project was like the first real, like true rail park.
Yeah, a couple other guys had been like messing around with it, but that one was the first one that like a lot of time went into.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean,
but that was like after we had already, those guys had started, and then we're like, oh, well, then we can jump over this. What if you go lake to lake? What if you go over this road? Like the the options were endless.
right.
And you're seeing that now with the winch guys, like those guys, some of those spillways and stuff they're doing.
Amazing.
Just the technicality in something so gnarly on what you're seeing on some of these guys now is ridiculous.
Yeah, the Space Mountain guys, Graham,
Yep.
I mean,
Dom.
Dami.
Yeah. Like their margin for error, and I mean, we thought our margin for error was small, and some of these big things they're doing now are so impressive.
Yeah, definitely. Um, Talking about the district, your name has been anonymous or synonymous, not anonymous, synonymous.
It's like almost been like 10 years now.
I was gonna say it's been a long time, and the coolest thing about that is that you're representing, becoming an older rider, someone that's looking for a board that you know, is fun and can adapt to you, and is, more or less based on keeping you on the water because it's fun and easy to ride. Like, I think that's really, really cool that instead of doing a board, you know what I mean, that you're like making, trying to be aggressive and like, you know what I mean? Like such a high caliber board, you're like, I want to make a board that everyone can get on, everyone can have fun, and it's going to keep me on the water because it's a fun, easy board to ride.
That was the complete mindset going into the district. Like from day one, we're just like, how does this board gonna ride great? How is it gonna ride great from someone that I'm gonna get up for the first time, do their first 180, do their first back roll, do a chromo. Like we just wanted something that was gonna be easy to ride. We didn't want it to be a complete beginner board, too easy, you're gonna grow out of it right away. We didn't want it to be this, crazy pigeonholed like board where like this is the type of rider you are. We want it to be this board. You're gonna ride this board until you figure out where your next step is.
Right.
Whether I want that big 3-stage pop, I want that super edgy board, I want the big flats guy. This one's gonna kind of do it all well, and you're gonna figure out your style off of it.
And why don't you give me a rundown on the hybrid rocker line? Because one thing that was brought up when I was talking to Jake yesterday about the Supreme is that he took the influence from, like him and Tyler, when they were designing the Supreme, they took and talked about the hybrid rocker line of the district and wanted to reverse that.
Yes.
And that's what, I mean, this board basically inspired the concept that went into their board.
100%, yeah. So I mean, it's got continuous rails through the edges. So it's gonna be, when you're on edge, it's gonna be nice and easy. A lot of times you're gonna ride that edge through the wake, so it's gonna be that, super like predictable takeoff through the wake. But if you want to take that edge early and flatten off, it does have a 3-stage rocker in the center. So it's kind of best of both worlds.
Right.
When those guys, wanted more pop, wanted to, they doing stuff straight up and tens and all that stuff. They went reverse on it, where they had the more flat through the edges and the more continuous through the center.
The 3-stage on the
3-stage on the edges.
On the edges, yeah.
So it just kind of went reverse.
Yeah,
So,
no, that's really cool.
as a beginner, you're really just trying to keep that edge through the wake, so it's going to be a little more forgiving on that edge through the wake, whereas those guys want that punch through the wake.
Right.
So, but
no.
I mean, that board's way more advanced through the technology and all that stuff. But I mean, I rode yesterday and the day before on this thing, and it's a blast. It's so much fun to ride.
And it keeps you having fun on the water.
It does.
Which is the point.
I actually, last week I rode the 150 a few times, which, in theory is way too big of a board for me. But it was so much fun. It was like doing some airs into the flats. It was landing so soft. It definitely had to wait longer going through the wake. And then for those bigger guys, it comes all the way in a 150. So like all day long, like riding too small of a board, especially when you're learning stuff, is no fun. Having that 150, like all day long, that's the way to go.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's cool to be able to, think about the product that prolongs enjoyment on the water.
Yeah, I mean, I'm into my 40s now, and I'm having a blast.
Into your 40s, just had your second kid, and crushing life. Chad Sharpe,
Cheers, Zach.
one of my very best friends.
Love you,
It's
buddy.
love you too. It's been an amazing ride with you, and here's to 20 more years of having a shit ton of fun on the water.
Let's do. Cheers.